so much. Ooh. My legs feel so much better. I don't know why I had the smart idea to wearing sweatpants. I think that's a smart idea. Hey guys, it is me, Miss MatchaBlossom. So today we're gonna be actually talking about some kind of like sewing tips because I've been getting some questions about that. I just want to kind of help you guys out. So while I'm making current sewing videos to kind of help you out, hopefully this video can help you understand how to make your own patterns, but it's a way to measure yourself to kind of help you out. If you guys want to know more about Hanfu sewing ideas or just Hanfu videos that are into sewing or how to construct them, go ahead and hit a like and subscribe and hit the bell notification. It lets you know when I have a new video coming out to YouTube and it keeps you informed. Without further ado, let's go ahead. I feel like I should get more lip gloss. I'll be talking. So I definitely wanted to go over, because I notice sometimes whenever we sew Hanfu, and a lot of people say this in my comments, like, hey, how can I make it for myself? I'm either plus size or I can't fit it. I can't find the patterns anywhere online. So if you want to make your own patterns, some people get confused on how to do it. Here's something that kind of guides you to it, because like I know everyone fits differently, whether you're tall, short, big, small, petite, curvy, not curvy, slightly curvy like me, shaped like a tetherball stand, no boobs, all butt, okay? It's different for every person on how to make these Hanfu, but I think this might help you out just so you can at least construct your own Hanfu for yourself. So measuring is very important in sewing. Knowing your measurements, knowing where to measure on your body is very, very important. Just make sure you keep that in consideration. You need to know at least how to measure your body, whether you're looking at different YouTube videos or whether you've read a sewing book or whether you have sewing knowledge. Knowing how to measure yourself is important. Any sewing store, whether it's a fabric store, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, any fabric producing store that sells like sewing materials or items or fabrics can definitely help you with this coming up.
You can stop at 5 or 6 stores or just one.
Getting a measuring tape can help you know your measurements. It's very simple, it's very cheap. Sometimes they're for $1 or 90 cents, or if you in another conversion, it's just for a cheaper price. Now, having that is the first step. Having your notebook, pen, or pencil, and then having a measuring tape. Those are 4 things you already need, all right? Don't make it harder than these. The next step you need to do is either, if you can do it, or if you can't, have someone help you. Friend, parent, relative, guardian, family member, doesn't matter. Any kind of person can help you do this, whether it's a tailor, seamstress, or not. Knowing how to measure yourself, if you can't do it yourself, can help you make these Hanfu. Having your items is the first thing. Knowing someone who can help you if you can't do it yourself is the second step. Third thing you need to do is start measuring. Some people will be like, all right, Matcha, where do we start measuring? Because you ain't even say it. Hey fellas, chill out, chill out. I'ma get there. Don't worry, don't worry. First thing in key body measurements for Hanfu, you need to understand the basics, right? You have your bust area, you have your waist, your hips, your body height, your leg length, your inseam, which is around from your crotch to your foot, that's an inseam. And you need to know your collar, neck region. So that's either the circumference of your collar, or depending on like where you're doing like a mandarin collar, which is the liling collar, your length, kind of like the length or circumference of your neck, right? So those are key body measurements that you would need to know just for sewing in general. But if you're gonna make something that needs a center front and center back, that's also very important for measurements too. Now some people might be asking me, okay, Macho, what is a center back and center front? What is the center of what? So center back and center front are going to be something that in sewing terms helps you understand the front of the fabric and the back of the fabric. Center front is going to be just like the center, like what is actually being focused on in the center region for the front area, and vice versa for the back. So for that, sometimes they'll do just one part is going to be for the pattern, and they just reverse it on the other side so that it's symmetrical. So that's how you do the center front, because they'll do one side is the center front, whether it's the left or the right, and they just flip it the other way, unless you're having some kind of different symmetry of your clothing garment piece. The center back, same thing applies as well. Having everything like the same length, it's going to be something that's similar for center front and for center back. That's a very different kind of thing, but it's very similar to the center back explanation I just did. Now, I would say when you're doing the center front, you're definitely going to need the neck to waist ratio measurement. So you just take the measurement with the measuring tape, you go up from your neck and you go down to your waist. Neck to waist, one of the center front. And the next measurement you're going to need to do is your waist and then your high hip. If you don't know what those are, and you can add the hip measurement later on if you need it, but most of the time, some people just only need the high hip. There's some people are gonna like, what's the difference between fucking high hip? What's the difference between high hip and hip? Like, isn't that the same? It It actually isn't. So normally you know your waist measurement, right? That goes all the way around just the waist. And then you know your hip measurement that goes all around your hip measurement where your pelvis bone is. Now the high hip is literally that little bit above the hip, but like not so much in the center between hip and measurement. It's just slightly above your hip measurement. And the reason why some people have high hip measurements is because sometimes your top or your roof or your ruchin or the Hanfu garment you have, sometimes it might be a little bit leaning over or a little bit longer than it needed. So sometimes a high hip measurement can be needed for this kind of structure. Now, I would say for the center back, it's going to be very similar. You're going to need your neck to waist ratio measurement, which is going just your length, your vertical length of that. And then you're going to need your waist to hip length. And that's really just for the back. The reason why is because not only people do not pay attention as much to the back as they do the front, but it's not so much as detailed as the front, because some people like to add more detail in the front, usually in the back. Now, if you do have it the back and the front that you need more detail to, and it needs to be a certain way, that is another story for another sewing term. You want to make sure that you have it just these two ways as I explain it, because sometimes people have a bum in the back of their back and they have an arch, so you don't want to change the measurements too much, because if it looks like this, it's a lot easier to have when you wear the clothing. It'll balance itself out to being more horizontal instead of diagonal. For me, for example, I have to have my fitted clothing when I would make A-line dresses, because I have an arch in the back and I have a big bum. I have to add my things to a slanted angle, so where in the back I have to cut it higher than I do in the front, which is lower because it's at an angle, because it's how I'm shaped, balanced in the front and in the back. Just do those measurements as I listed, unless you're doing something more complex like I mentioned, the diagonal and the horizontal. Unless you're doing something like that, that's another story for another time. If you're wondering, okay, what is the T to Hanfu measurements I need to pay attention to, I'll let you know about center fronts and center backs and what are the basics to know about in measurements. Here are some examples what most Hanfu books or sewing material or sewing patterns are going to have you look at when you do. And sometimes they won't tell you and they expect you to already know, because I actually have a book over here that literally was like, here's some basic measurements, and then they expect me to already know from my measurements how to make a pattern. So this is why I said it's very important to know your own Hanfu measurements. Here are some examples that most Hanfu books, pattern books or sewing books are going to ask you for. They're going to ask you for, what is the neckline? Measure your neckline. That's going to be very important. Doing your shoulder width, which is from shoulder to shoulder. Your chest width, which most of the time that's like your bust kind of measurements, to be honest with you. And your waist length, which is your waist measurement. Your hip lines, which is just your hip measurements, where it's high hip or just your regular hip measurement. Skirt / pants length. Now that can be applied to your outer. Okay, what does that mean? So if you're doing a skirt or a pants length for your out seam, which is another word that it's called, that's normally from your hip all the way down to your ankle, or depending on how long you want the pants to be or how long you need it to be. Your inseam sometimes can help you with this. I'm gonna say most of the time you're gonna need your inseam measurement as well, because it's gonna be different from the inside. And remember what the inseam is. It's from your crotch all the way down to your foot or your ankle. So that is the inside of your pants, while the outseam is the outside of your pants. That's why I said hip to foot or ankle. Now, torso length is another measurement. I think it's optional, but it's also helpful. Torso length is another thing they'll say in the book, which from your neck to your waist. So do you guys see like why I said those beginning measurements first, so that you can understand the Hanfu measurements later? Because even though they have different names, if you know the basics of the regular measurements names, you can apply it to something else that has like a different synonym name to what they say in Hanfu books. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, okay, well that felt like a waste of space. If you understand the basics of measurements, knowing and sewing, and you gotta remember it always changes up different names, like just because tomato, but it doesn't stop it from having its usual pattern, like its usual like method of how to make these Hanfu based off of your measurements. So hopefully that helped you guys out today. Please go ahead and let me know, what are your measurements and how did you feel about learning about this today? Are you more confident about making your own patterns now and how to do it? Hopefully this has kind of helped you out a bit more. If you have noticed some differences or some easier kind of ways, let me know down below. I would like to know too, because I'm still learning as well as a human being on it. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so sorry for the delay with videos. I've been trying to adult and keep my life together with YouTube, so thank you guys for being patient. So if you want to see more sewing and knowledgeable hacks with Hanfu or ancient Chinese garments, go ahead and hit a like and subscribe and hit a bell because it lets you know and it lets YouTube let you know when I have a new video coming out. If you want to see any new or current news that I am up to or accomplishing or what's coming to this channel, go ahead and hit the community tab page. I would normally keep you posted and updated on there as well. But thank you guys so much for coming to this video. Do not forget to spread peace, love, and happiness, and it's only up to you to make every day. See you ladies and gents later. Bye. Oh, I dropped my book.